Today, we're diving into the incredible story of our global system. We're going to explore how nations talk to each other, the rules they play by, and really how the world as we know it came to be in the first place.
Think about it. When we talk about war or diplomacy, or even a country's basic right to govern itself, we're actually tapping into ideas that were locked in centuries ago. But where did these fundamental concepts even come from?
For a long time, this has been the go-to answer. The big moment in Europe that supposedly kicked off the whole international system of states that we recognize today. It's the answer you'll find in pretty much every textbook.
But here's the thing. This story, that European nations invented the whole idea of an international society, it's a powerful one for sure. But is it the whole truth? Let's dig a little deeper.
You see, the idea of different groups of people creating rules to manage how they deal with each other, that's not new. And it is definitely not just a European thing. Actually, you could say international societies have been around for as long as people have lived in one place and had to figure out how to get along with their neighbors. Way before Westphalia, you had these incredibly complex systems. The Greek city-states, for instance, they all shared a common language and religion. The Mauryan Empire in India had these sophisticated norms for how to conduct war and diplomacy. And of course, ancient China and Rome built huge systems to manage relations with everyone around.
And these ancient societies had a lot of the same features as our system today. They had rules for war, they had principles of diplomacy, and they had this really strong belief that when you make a treaty, it's a sacred deal. You don't break it. So in a very real way, they were the world's first international societies.
Okay, so while all these ancient systems existed, something truly revolutionary did happen in Europe that completely changed the game and set the stage for the world we live in now.
And that brings us to this one, single year 1648. This is when the Peace of Westphalia was signed. And it's such a pivotal moment because it introduced this powerful new idea that would come to define, well, everything.
Now, this wasn't just some random treaty. It was the end of one of the longest and most destructive wars in the history of Europe. For 30 years, the entire continent had been torn apart by fighting between Catholic and Protestant states. It completely shattered the old medieval order. And out of all that chaos, the treaty's most crucial contribution was this principle of sovereignty. For the very first time, it was formally agreed that a state, not an emperor, not the pope, had the absolute final say over its own territory and its own internal business.
And the change was dramatic. I mean, it was night and day. Before 1648, power was a messy web. A king might answer to an emperor, who answered to the pope. Borders were kind of fuzzy. After Westphalia, boom, you get a system of independent states with clear territories, and each one of them has a monopoly on power inside its own borders.
So this new system, born in Europe, didn't stay in Europe. It expanded all across the world, often through colonial competition and brute force, and it was soon tested by conflicts on a scale nobody had ever even imagined before.
The next few centuries were a real roller coaster. First, you have the Age of Empires, which basically globalized European power. Then after Napoleon, the Congress of Vienna tried to create a balance of power to keep any one country from getting too strong. But that old order came crashing down with World War I, and the failure to fix things then led directly to the even bigger catastrophe of World War II.
After 1945, the world was just different. It was no longer centered on Europe. The old powers were exhausted, and that set the stage for a brand new global struggle, this time defined by two giants with completely opposite visions for the world.
And that new era, of course, was the Cold War. For almost half a century, the international system was fundamentally bipolar. Now, what does that mean? It means it was split right down the middle between two main opposing camps, or poles of power. The two sides were crystal clear. On one side, you had the Western Bloc, led by the United States, championing capitalism and organized under the NATO military alliance, and on the other, you had the Eastern Bloc, led by the Soviet Union and its Warsaw Pact allies, committed to a communist ideology.
And then, with a speed that just took everyone by surprise, one of these superpowers simply vanished. It started with reforms in the mid-80s, which led to the incredible moment the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, and it all culminated in the complete dissolution of the Soviet Union itself just 2 years later. Just like that, the bipolar world was over.
So, with the Soviet Union gone, the world found itself in this really unique situation. For the first time in the modern era, there was only one true global superpower, the United States.
People started calling this the unipolar moment, a time when American military, economic, and cultural power was pretty much unrivaled around the globe.
But, as we all know, moments don't last forever. Today, we find ourselves in a much more complex, much more unpredictable system. It's one that's constantly shifting and facing a whole new set of challenges.
Our world today is a complicated mix. Decolonization after World War II created a world of nearly 200 sovereign states, all with their own interests. Globalization has made all of our economies so interconnected that a crisis in one place can ripple out and affect all of us. And now, we're seeing the return of great power competition and even major wars, all while we're still grappling with this persistent divide between the world's richer and poorer nations.
This quote really gets to the heart of a key debate about the world after the Cold War. The idea is that the United States kind of stepped into this role as a global security guard, which shaped the whole international system and raised all these big questions about power, dominance, and what the future of cooperation looks like.
And that brings us to today. The system that was born in Westphalia, based on sovereign states, has proven to be remarkably tough. It survived empires, world wars, and huge ideological struggles. But in a world with new powers on the rise, new technologies changing everything, and brand new challenges, how it will evolve from here? Well, that remains the biggest question of all.